She broke into my house, she smashed the lock on my display cabinet, she stole my entire antique key collection and sold it for a phone, asterisk, and then my wife said I was overreacting, asterisk. My mother-in-law is an outrageously brazen woman, and the way my wife enables her sometimes turns our marriage into an absolute nightmare. The mother-in-law constantly asks us for money because she's always in debt. She's both a hoarder and a shopaholic. Her house is filled with junk, clutter, and unopened items she never even uses. There are already rodents in her home. Only one room is somewhat clean, the bedroom. She turned it into a tiny studio. A sleeping mattress, a TV, and an improvised kitchen made up of a combined bathroom, a mini fridge, and a microwave. She's also overweight because she constantly eats takeout food. Recently, she came to us demanding that I buy her a new phone. Why should I do that? Just because, as a gift. She threw a massive tantrum when I refused. She screamed like a child. Why did she suddenly need a new phone? Her old one is only 2 years old, and as far as I know, it works perfectly. Even my wife confirmed that. But the mother-in-law was convinced she deserved a new one, and as she left, she yelled that we should start pampering her now because she's an old woman. She's 53. Even my wife didn't want to buy her the phone because she had just given her money to pay her bills. I have a fairly large collection of vintage skeleton keys. These are antique keys meant for mechanical locks with a simple mechanism, not some cheap junk but real rarities. Hotel keys, giant ornate farm keys, brass railroad keys, and so on. The entire collection was worth at least $2,000 to $3,000. Some keys were extremely rare that I kept them in a locked glass display cabinet. A few days ago, I came home and found the entire collection gone. The cabinet lock was broken. I checked the living room camera footage and saw my mother-in-law breaking into the cabinet with a small crowbar. Then she put all the keys into a box she brought with her and left. I immediately called her and demanded she return the collection. With total indifference, she told me she'd already pawned it all and spent the money on her new phone. Then she said it was my fault, and she had to do it because I didn't give her money for the phone. My wife was sort of on my side, until I said I was going to call the police. She begged me to let it go and even suggested I just start a new collection. I refused because many of those keys weren't just expensive, they were irreplaceable. I'd been building that collection for 10 years, but my wife kept yelling at me, insisting I should forget it. That night I slept in the guest room and the next day went online to ask for advice. My mother-in-law had caused problems before, but as far as I know, this was the first time she outright robbed us. I needed help. So I posted about it, and the overwhelming majority of replies helped me finally pull my head out of my ass and realize I'm the only one holding this marriage together. And it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. Not if my wife can't even support me when her mother literally stole from me. Now, to answer a few questions. First, how did my mother-in-law get into the house? Turns out my wife gave her a key when we first moved in without my consent. That's how. Second, why do I have security cameras in the living room? Seriously, wouldn't you install cameras if you had something valuable on display? Third, is my mother-in-law on any kind of medication? No idea. She's always been unhinged. Fourth, has she ever stolen from us before? As far as I know, no. I checked everything I could. Fifth, what phone did she buy? No idea. Probably some budget smartphone with whatever money she got for my collection. Unless she bought something on installment. Sixth, has my wife used my money before to please her mother? Yes, we mostly keep separate accounts, but we do have one shared account for utilities. We don't use it for savings. In 2 years of marriage, it's happened maybe 5 times. Every time she took money for her mom from the shared account, she would reimburse it with her next paycheck. Though looking back, I think she only did that because she knew I wouldn't just forget. She'd sulk around for days after. I used to be in some kind of marriage fog, but this situation yanked me out of it in an instant. 7th, did I block the possibility of anyone taking out credit in my name? Already done, though I doubt my wife or her mother are stupid enough to try something like that after what just happened. After my mother-in-law was arrested, I got my key collection back. I've now hidden it in a place neither my wife nor her mother could possibly find. I'll share details later. Edit. Since people keep asking. Yes, I called the police. Yes, my mother-in-law was arrested. Yes, my wife is about to become my ex. I'm taking a lot of precautions now. On the day of the theft, the police came and took my statement a little over an hour after I called. I had the video footage and all the documentation for the collection. I even deliberately got a confession from my mother-in-law through text. I wanted to gather as much proof as possible so she couldn't lie to the police. When I texted her and demanded she return the collection, she just said LOL and told me there was no way she'd give it back. Then she even bragged that she thought I was pathetic and that my key collection was garbage. I asked her to at least tell me which pawn shop she took it to so I could buy it back and how much she got for it, and this idiot happily gave me all the info via SMS without thinking twice. I had everything the cops needed even before they arrived. To my surprise, the police took the case much more seriously than I expected. I was afraid they'd say it was a civil matter since she's a relative and had a key to our place. But she was arrested fairly quickly, and before the pawn shop closed, the police went there and recovered my collection. A few days later, they returned it to me. It's now in a secure place where no one will ever get to it. The pawn shop handed everything over like it was a bag of stolen iPhones. I inspected every single key. Looks like nothing is missing. I let out a massive sigh of relief. Because of all this, I took time off work and barely slept for 2 days. Also, the glass cabinet that my mother-in-law broke into is now trash. She busted the lock and shattered the doors. Luckily, it wasn't an antique, just a cheap piece bought for $50 somewhere. I'll take it to the dump when I get around to it. From my text exchange with her, I found out she sold the entire collection to the pawn shop for just $300. For a collection of hundreds of antique keys worth $2,000 to $3,000, the shop owner must have realized how valuable the set might be. Sure, it wasn't a jackpot, but still, money is money, especially when some lunatic walks in with a box of treasure. By agreement, the mother-in-law was supposed to repay the pawn shop. But my wife paid the money from our shared account. According to the shop owner, my mother-in-law told him the keys belonged to her late husband and that she was tired of them just collecting dust in a cabinet. He believed her. For context, she's not even a widow. Her husband divorced her and left the state about 15 years ago. She lives off disability and food stamps now. Every few months, she hosts garage sales. She often asks us to give her empty soda or beer cans so she can cash them in for a few bucks. She doesn't have a car, rides around on a mobility scooter with a bicycle trailer. She lives in a house that's long been paid off. She wouldn't have money problems if she didn't blow everything she gets like a maniac every month. And when she inevitably ends up broke again, she always counts on my wife to bail her out. When my wife came home, we had a huge fight because I got her mother arrested. But I told her I wouldn't tolerate her covering for her anymore. I said I was changing the locks immediately and forbidding her mother from ever setting foot in our home again. I added, either we go to family therapy or I go to a lawyer and find out how to file for divorce. I thought my wife would beg me not to do it, but instead, she called me a horrible person, packed a suitcase, and left for a motel. I just sat on the couch and let her go. She kept looking back like she expected me to ask her to stay, but I didn't. The next morning, she texted me that she was going to bail her mother out of jail and asked me to send her money because, according to her, it was my fault her mother was arrested. I refused. She replied with a sarcastic wow, and that was it. Soon after it hit me, I checked the balance of our shared account. My wife had withdrawn a significant amount. I wasn't sure if it all went toward bail, so I later called the pawn shop. The owner confirmed that my wife had come in and returned the $300 he'd paid her mother for the keys. He was furious and said he didn't want to see either of us in his store ever again. I understood. We actually ended up talking for a while. I tried calling and texting my wife all day, but she ignored me. That evening, I figured out which motel she had likely gone to, the cheapest one near our house, and I was right. I found her car, then figured out which room she was in. When she opened the door, she looked genuinely shocked. I demanded an explanation for the missing money from the shared account. She straight up told me that since I refused to pay her mother's bail after getting her arrested, she just took the money from me a different way. Then, with a smug grin, she said she wouldn't be paying it back this time. She added that it was karma, then slammed the door in my face. Right after that, she yelled that she'd call the police if I didn't leave, the triumphant look on her face reminded me of those mean high school girls in movies who get their way. It just infuriated me. I already knew our marriage was effectively dead, but that night it really sank in. I stayed up late playing retro video games, drinking soda, and thinking, we rent this house. I'm not renewing my part of the lease. I'll start looking for an apartment soon. The lease ends in March, but if I find something earlier, I'll move out. Thank God we don't have kids. The next day, I changed the locks, pulled my share from the joint account, and canceled all automatic payments. I took exactly what I had put in, no more, no less. There's still a small amount left in the account. So now, the bail and the pawn repayment fall entirely on my wife. She doesn't know that yet, but she will soon. I've already met with a few divorce lawyers and picked one. I'll be filing soon. I loved my wife, but it's clear now that she never loved me. So I don't want to stay with her anymore. Let her deal with her thieving, wasteful mommy on her own now. My wife and I make roughly the same income, so I'll be pursuing a 50-50 divorce split. This woman didn't deserve me. I fell for her act. She didn't want a husband. She wanted an insurance policy. Let me be clear. I will not change my mind. Even if my almost ex falls to her knees and declares her undying love, if she even bothers, I won't take her back. I was never her priority. And I'm done being the backup plan in my own marriage. The end. Edit. Yes, I asked the landlord for permission to change the locks. He was all for it once I explained what had happened. All he needed was a copy of the new key. He even said he never wanted my mother-in-law to have a key to his property again. First update, I filed for divorce. Honestly, I did it partly because I found it kind of funny. From now on, I'm going to refer to my wife as wifey. I found and hired a divorce attorney pretty quickly, and she's a real shark. Yes, my attorney is a woman, and she seems to know exactly what she's doing. She asked me a couple of times if I was sure about divorcing, but once I explained everything and showed her the evidence, she fully supported my decision to start the process immediately. So it's on. This divorce is going to cost me a fortune, but I don't care. I'll rebuild my savings later as a free man. Besides, I never even wanted to rent the house we're currently living in. Wifey insisted on this place. I would have been perfectly fine staying in our old apartment while we actually saved up for a house of our own, but now that's definitely off the table. At least renting solo will be cheaper after the divorce. Before coming back home, wifey stayed at a cheap motel while she bailed her mom's car out of jail. And when I went there to talk to her, she even threatened to call the cops on me. Meanwhile, with my landlord's permission, I changed the locks while she was gone. I texted her about it, but I guess she didn't bother reading the message. Because when she came back, she started banging on the door and yelling for me to open up. I just watched the whole circus through the doorbell cam and let her scream for a bit before she finally called me. I was walking home from dinner with my best friend when I told her to check her messages. When I got home, she was standing there with puffy red eyes, looking like a scolded kitten. I handed her a new key and told her that if she gave it to her mother again, I'd report it to the landlord immediately. and he was already furious that she ever had access to his property. I'm not sure what he'd actually do in that case, but the warning was enough for wifey to back off, at least for now. Still, I'm not planning to live here anymore. My mother-in-law is still convinced she did nothing wrong and plays the victim to wifey every chance she gets. She's now banned from entering our home for obvious reasons. Both wifey and her mother have repeatedly called me a monster. I've never been more thankful that my mother-in-law doesn't have any friends, otherwise she'd already be spreading her twisted version of events where I'm the villain. She's now been told the approximate value of my key collection and what criminal charges she might face. The collection was returned to me in full, so maybe her sentence will be reduced. I'd like to hope she still gets punished, but honestly, I'm not counting on the system to do much to someone as manipulative as her. As I mentioned in my last post, wifey bailed out her mother and paid back the pawn shop using money from our shared account. Then she smugly announced that she wasn't going to repay that money. She tried to dominate the situation and shift all the costs onto me. So I pulled all my funds from that account and cut off all future deposits, making sure she wouldn't be spending any more of my money. I also changed nearly every password I had. A couple of days ago, she finally checked the online banking app and had a meltdown when she realized both the bail and pawn payments had come entirely from her own pocket and she no longer had access to any of my funds. I ignored her tantrum and went to the home office to watch anime on my computer. She banged on the door, demanding we talk. I said nothing and just put on my headphones. Wifey has repeatedly demanded that I drop all charges against her mother. She even said that if I truly loved her, I wouldn't just stop everything. I would have paid for it all myself when I refused. Again, she moved into the guest room. At first, she tried to kick me out of our bedroom, but I made it very clear I wasn't giving it up. Not after what she'd done. She started dragging out my stuff, but I blocked her way, pointed a finger in her face, and said no like I was talking to a dog. She burst into tears and accused me of humiliating her. I didn't care. Then, with a smug little smirk, she admitted that before all this, she had planned to move her mother in with us, permanently, because her house was buried in junk. She bragged that she was going to sneak her in while I was at work. I told her we're supposed to be equal partners, not living by her solo decisions. And as long as I was paying 50% of the rent, her mother wasn't going to live here. If she tried to move her in, I'd toss all her stuff out on the street. Wifey looked like she was about to explode and ran off to the kitchen to slam the door and call her mommy. While she was occupied, I moved all her belongings out of the bedroom and installed a new lock on the door. I sent divorce papers to her workplace. That humiliated her in front of her co-workers. When she got home, she threw another tantrum. Looks like she never actually believed I'd go through with the divorce. Not until she had the papers in her hands. She screamed that I couldn't do this to her, and I told her I'd had enough. She had made it crystal clear whose side she was on. So I told her I'd read something online that stuck with me. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. She showed me. This isn't the woman I fell in love with. That woman is gone, replaced by a spoiled little girl who refuses to grow up. It became obvious this was all intentional. At this point, I don't even think she ever loved me. She liked my wallet. I can't stay married to a woman who played me. She swore she wasn't some gold digger, so I asked, would you have stayed with me if I had done this to you? At first, she tried to wriggle out of it, then stumbled, looked around like she was searching for the answer, and, predictably, started gaslighting again to derail the conversation. I didn't fall for it. I told wifey that I wouldn't be renewing the lease on the house because I refused to live with a bratty, immature woman I couldn't trust. If she wanted to keep the place, she could sign a new lease and move in here with her mommy once I left. That's when she really broke down in tears. She forgot that I'm the one destroying the family. I said, what family? I reminded her we don't have any kids, and that, to her, her mother matters more than I do. We don't have a family. Then I just turned around and walked out. She cried on the couch for hours, but I ignored her. Now she's in full silent treatment mode, won't look me in the eye or speak to me. Honestly, I kind of enjoy it, and it seems to piss her off even more. As a nice little bonus, I warned our landlord that wifey was planning to move her mother into the house. I told him everything I knew about her, about the hoarder conditions in her house, and how manipulative wifey is. I warned him that if the mother-in-law moved in, she'd turn the house into a dump. He thanked me for the info and said there's no way he'd let wifey renew the lease soon. He'll post a new rental listing. Wifey has no idea, and even with her mother's help, she probably won't be able to afford the rent on her own. Oh, and one more thing. Yesterday, someone here advised me to take my name off the shared bank account completely so I wouldn't be liable if the account was overdrawn. I took that advice and went to the bank. Got it all sorted. Since I work from home, it wasn't hard to find the time. I've already given all account statements to my attorney. Now I can sleep easy. Edit. Not sure how it works at other banks, but mine removed my name from the account with no issue once I insisted. There was no debt on the account, and the balance was above the minimum. The bank probably notified wifey, whether she knows yet or not. I don't care. She's not talking to me anyway. Second update. Why I'm so pissed right now. There's something I need to clarify. I've been told more than once that I'm being condescending, twisting things, acting like a jerk, and so on. Well, let me tell you exactly what I've had to deal with. Before I ever posted the story about the key collection online, wifey used to act very differently. During the 3 years we were together before getting married, she was kind and regularly put her mom in check if she crossed any lines. She never expected me to help out with her mom either. It all seemed ideal. Her mother was also a lot more pleasant back then, even apologetic. That was before I married her daughter. Believe me, back then she came off as some sweet lady. I actually felt bad for her because of her hoarding problem. I hoped she could manage it, but after we said I do, everything got worse. As soon as we got back from the honeymoon, both wifey and her mother completely changed. Suddenly, everything had to be their way, or not at all. And somehow, I was always made out to be the bad guy, even for having my own opinion. They constantly teamed up against me to prove I was wrong. Wifey started acting like a moody teenager, like some rebellious brat. And in the bedroom, things went silent, partly because I suffer from migraines, but mostly because she just never felt like it. By the time I posted my story online, we hadn't been intimate in for months. I have a low sex drive, so I wasn't dying over it, but still, she almost never initiated anything. The only time she did was if something particularly good happened in her life. In public, she played the perfect wife. But at home, she dropped the act the moment the ring was on my finger. I already talked about how smug and arrogant she was when she used money from our shared account to pay the bail and the pawn shop. She acted like a winner, proudly announcing that it came from my half, or when she just as smugly admitted she was planning to move her mom in without even asking me. I can't take it anymore. Over the past few years, she's made so many decisions on her own. I didn't even know she gave her mom a spare key to the house, and that's what led to my collection being stolen in the first place. Before my mother-in-law stole my collection, I just kept quiet and tolerated all their behavior. Why? Because I thought I loved her. My head was in a fog, but then your comments opened my eyes. Now I see I'm married to a spoiled little girl who completely ignores me if I want to talk about anything serious, unless we're in public. Then she plays the role. I realize now that she learned all this from her mother, but she refused to even consider family therapy. If she had said yes and just hoped the therapist would take her side, that would have shown she needed help, but the way she behaves shows she knows exactly what she's doing, and she doesn't care, even this house. I never wanted to live here. But for wifey, it was a matter of principle. I wanted to save up so that in a few years we could buy a home of our own. She wanted to live like her friends and acquaintances, keeping up appearances. And it had nothing to do with being closer to her mother because our old apartment was actually closer to her mom's house. Wifey just wanted to live in a house. Didn't care if I liked it or not. Sure, space is nice, but I ended up paying for almost all the new furniture here, and I hate living in this place. That's why I'm so worked up. I could have gone much harsher, to be honest. All I want is to get out of this house and out of this marriage. I do regret sending the divorce papers to her workplace. That was too much. Probably one of the very few things I genuinely regret in this whole situation, but don't blame my lawyer. That was entirely my idea. I wanted to get back at her and made a bad choice. But what's done is done. I can't change it now. Wifey still isn't speaking to me. We're completely ignoring each other, and honestly, if it stays this way until I move out, I'll be perfectly happy with that. Update 3. A bit about my past since I mentioned earlier that I stopped talking to my mother long before I ever met Wifey. I figured it's time to explain why my mom is a manipulative, controlling, victim-playing, hysterical thief she used to throw public tantrums, openly hated animals, and constantly tried to scam free meals at restaurants by pretending the food or service was awful. She's a liar and a thief. Her personal life is a never-ending parade of random men. Here's one of her favorite phrases, one she drilled into me throughout my entire childhood: life isn't fair. You don't have to like it, you just have to do it, and I'm not asking, I'm telling, or you can tell by the look on my face I care. I think you get the picture, and no, don't take this as some sob story. My childhood was poor, but I learned early on how to live with very little. My dad died of an overdose when I was very young. I barely remember him. He had no surviving parents, and my mom's parents died when I was still a kid. From what I was told, they were good people. I have no idea how they ended up with a daughter like my mom. After they passed, family connections basically fell apart, support from extended relatives was rare and minimal. No one wanted to deal with her. She kept moving us further and further away from them. Later, I found out she used me as a bargaining chip, emotionally blackmailing relatives to get whatever she wanted from them. I never got close to any of them, and now I don't talk to almost any of them, but credit where it's due. My mom worked hard, constantly, just so we had a roof over our heads. She worked minimum wage jobs, which meant she was rarely home during the day. And once the bills were paid, she often spent the remaining money on booze. While drunk, she would openly tell me she never wanted a child and hated being a mom. When she was home, she was usually drunk and would come up with random tasks just to get me out of sight. If I didn't leave on my own, she'd kick me out. Day or night, rain or heat, didn't matter. I spent a lot of time outside. Sometimes I even slept there. I'd build little shelters out of trash, branches, and debris nearby. They became my hideouts, my escape from her. At first, they were just simple lean-tos under trees, but one day I had a better idea. I found a discarded shovel and started digging a hole in the woods not far from our apartment. It took weeks to build that thing. It was my proudest accomplishment at the time. The hardest part was digging, but I managed to make it at least 5 feet deep and maybe 8 feet long. I built a roof supported by 2 beams, tied it together with rope and screws, then covered it with layers of plastic and plywood I found lying around. To be fair, the idea wasn't entirely mine. A classmate once told me he and his buddy built something similar, but they had proper materials. I had trash. I piled all the removed dirt on top, forming a little hill. Almost looked like a hobbit hole. I even planted moss and grass on it for camouflage. The hardest part was hiding the entrance, especially when I was inside. I made a makeshift ladder to climb in and out, and the door was an old piece of plywood that I deliberately dirtied up. Honestly, it looked cool. It didn't even leak in the rain. I even rigged a kind of wash basin inside. I was 11 at the time. I never told anyone about that fort. But a year later, we moved to a new apartment about 10 miles away. A few months after, The move, I biked back to check on it, and found some hostile homeless guy living in it. I couldn't even retrieve the stuff I had stashed inside. I had to let it go. The new place wasn't near any woods, so I never managed to build another one like that. As a teen, I did get my hands on a tent, but barely used it. At least. As I got older, my mom started disappearing for 2 to 3 days at a time, and when she was gone, I finally had some peace. As long as there was food and something to do, I was fine. By age 7, I had no more babysitters. My grandfather had died by then, and my grandmother was very ill, in their final years. They were too weak to help. So I got used to being alone, in a stuffy apartment with no AC and no real entertainment. My mom never owned a car. We took buses, unless one of her boyfriends gave us a ride. By the time I was 8, I was basically raising myself. I'd wake up for school on my own, make my own meals, mostly cereal or frozen stuff from the microwave. At school, I qualified for free lunch programs for low-income families. My mom milked the system for everything it was worth. We always lived in the cheapest apartments in the sketchiest neighborhoods. No cable, no internet. If I wasn't at a friend's house or the library, I watched whatever free channels we still had, or one of the handful of DVDs or VHS tapes we owned. I didn't have a game console until one of my friend's parents took pity on me and gave me his older brother's used Nintendo 64. By that point, it was basically worthless. But it came with a couple games and an old TV. To keep myself busy, I dumpster dive behind apartment buildings looking for anything useful or interesting. That's how I found clothes, toys, a BMX bike, a portable radio, DVDs, VHS tapes including those kinds, and sometimes Lego sets. I had to hide those tapes really well. Most of what I found was junk, but occasionally I got lucky. Sometimes I even found game cartridges. I'd usually sell them to the local game store since I didn't own the consoles, though I did luck out and find a couple that worked on my N64. Too bad the games were garbage. People threw out tons of books too, but I was never really into reading. When my mom found out I was digging through trash, she didn't stop me. She told me to start collecting aluminum cans and beer bottles so we could turn them in for recycling money. That became my only form of allowance for a while. I'd use the cash to buy random stuff from the local dollar store. All the clothes I found that fit me, I washed and wore. I taught myself how to mend ripped clothes, sew buttons, and patch stuff. No one taught me that. I never told anyone at school I wore dumpster clothes. My friends knew but kept it quiet. Funny enough, people threw out some pretty decent stuff. I don't know if they were rich or just careless. I can't count how many great shirts and pants I found that were missing just one button. I'd fix them and wear them proudly. I didn't buy a single new item of clothing, not even socks, until college. I shopped at thrift stores until then. I also learned to fix bikes. Around here, people threw them out regularly, some I found in ditches. I even found tools in the trash. That's how I got my first bike and started riding it to school, then some. Hole stole it because my mom wouldn't let me bring it inside. A friend later gave me his old bike, along with a chain and lock, so it wouldn't get stolen again. I started cooking for myself and my mom around age 9. One day she caught me making breakfast, and from that point on, she dumped the job on me. I didn't cook anything fancy, mostly spaghetti when I got older. Whenever we went out, I braced myself for her to cause a scene. If it ended with just some grumbling, I considered it a lucky day. A couple times we got kicked out of places because of her behavior. She acted like the world owed her something. She pretended to know things she didn't because she hated losing arguments. She'd also steal, sometimes flat out grabbing glasses or utensils from restaurants and stuffing them in her purse. I'd find them later in our kitchen. At stores, she'd grab 2 identical items, pretend to return one, and pocket the other when the cameras weren't looking. Birthdays, She ignored them, hers and mine. Eventually, she said, I was so self-sufficient that now she could spend more money on herself. Strangely, when I hit my teenage years, she suddenly changed. She started acting affectionate, and it was creepy. I remember one time when I was around 14, her then boyfriend dumped her. That whole evening, she clung to me, hugging and kissing my face. She'd never done that before, and it disgusted me. After that, she kept calling me baby all the time. Eventually, I snapped. We had a huge fight. She gaslit me, told me I was a terrible son, and I fired back that she was a terrible mother because she never supported me. She screamed at me to get out of her house. I didn't come back for 2 days. After that, we fought. Every single time she called me baby, until she finally stopped. At 15, I got a part-time job. And of course, she immediately demanded I hand over my entire paycheck to cover rent and bills. I stood up for myself again. In the end, we compromised. I gave her half and saved the rest so I could move out when I turned 18. I just needed a cheap hole-in-the-wall apartment in a local community college. When I finally turned 18, I packed my things and left without saying a word, but she found me quickly, moved closer, tracked me down at school, and demanded I come back home. I refused, so she followed me back to my apartment. Then she started showing up constantly, trying to control things or humiliate me in front of my neighbors. She even tried to convince the college to give her my phone number. When they refused, she threw a tantrum. Then she called my job, pretending to be my girlfriend, and got my number that way. One of my co-workers gave it to her. He got in trouble afterward because the policy clearly said, do not share other employees' personal info. That same guy later blamed me for getting him in trouble. A few months later, he was fired. Then she tried to get me fired too, calling my work with fake complaints. The funny thing is, she didn't even know what I did there. My manager eventually handled it himself after I explained everything. After that, I cut my toxic mother out of my life completely. I was 21. We had one final explosive fight, and I swore I would never live with her again. The moment she was out of my life, I felt free. No, I never went to therapy, but people have told me it sounds like my mother was trying to turn me into her surrogate husband. Even the phrase makes my skin crawl. Most people I've told this to think she suddenly got nicer because she realized she needed me more than I needed her. And maybe, just maybe, all my time rummaging through trash kept me from recognizing the hoarding problem in my mother-in-law when I got married. I think my desperation to have some form of family landed me in this mess. As for my obsession with skeleton keys, it also started back in childhood. One time, my mom and her then boyfriend went into an antique shop. I saw a display case filled with old keys. Her boyfriend offered to buy me one, but my mom said no, told me it was just worthless junk. I still wanted one badly. So I started collecting modern keys I'd find in the street. And I also had a bunch of old can opener keys, the kind that used to open tins. My mom found them and threw them away. I begged her to at least let me keep the keys. Eventually, she let me have them. Reluctantly. As an adult, I began collecting real skeleton keys, slowly at first, one at a time, from the local antique store. But after college, once I landed a decent job, I started ordering them from eBay, and now almost my entire collection has been built from there. Update 4. How my creepy co-worker leaked my number in the last update. I gave a detailed account of my mother. All you really need to know is she's an absolutely disgusting person, and I'm glad to be done with her. But this update is about Ted, a coworker I had while working at a warehouse during college. Unlike me, Ted was a full-time employee, but based on his behavior, you'd never guess he was on the payroll. We were about the same age. Ted loved sticking his nose in other people's business. Gossip was his favorite hobby, and he was constantly snooping. The guy would spend hours in the bathroom just listening to music so he could avoid work. His first write-up came after he brought an adult magazine to work and started reading it in public during break time. He thought the warning was ridiculous, said our manager was just a buzzkill, but of course no one took his side. His second write-up happened when he gave my mother my phone number. She had called the warehouse pretending to be my girlfriend. And Ted, without hesitation, gave her my number. How did he even know it? Our manager kept a list of everyone's contact info since most of us were part-timers like me and the turnover rate was insane. He needed to be able to call someone in fast whenever someone quit or called out, which happened a lot. The manager wasn't a bad guy, but he kept his distance from most of us. Anyway, Ted gave my mother my cell number, and she immediately started blowing up my phone. I reported it to management, and Ted got disciplined. The company policy clearly stated sharing co-workers' personal information is strictly prohibited. Ted, of course, tried to blame me. Said it was my fault because I hadn't warned him. I responded if she were really my girlfriend, she'd already have my number and wouldn't need to ask a stranger for it. After that, Ted started being cold and rude to me. Eventually, he stopped talking to me entirely. A couple months later, he got fired. They caught him snooping around in the manager's office again, despite being explicitly told to stay out. He threw a dramatic tantrum on his way out, yelling, "Screw you and your stupid job," then grabbed his backpack and stormed off. About a year later, I saw him again. He was working on a landscaping crew not far from where I lived. I passed by on my bike, slowed down, and saw him mowing a lawn. He didn't recognize me. Update 5. My wife tried to seduce me. Wi-Fi broke the silence. She tried to seduce me, and now she's panicking, desperately looking for a place to live. Honestly, the fact that so many of you predicted this so accurately is kind of creepy. But I guess it only proves how much of a walking cliché she really is. After about a week of total silence, she finally cracked and started love bombing me. Tried to make me dinner and pour me drinks. I told her straight up, while she was still cooking, that I wouldn't touch her food or any of the alcohol. First of all, she's a terrible cook, and second, I don't trust her anymore. She made overcooked burgers. I didn't touch them, and I didn't touch the already opened beers either. She broke down crying, saying I was cruel for not eating her food. I coldly told her I just couldn't trust her anymore. She shot back, "You're acting like I cheated on you or something." I told her, in a way, she did because her mother has always mattered more to her than her own husband. That's not how you build a marriage. You don't put your partner in second place. Wifey shifted gears and cried even harder, begging me to stop the divorce process. She promised we'd go to the family therapy I had asked for and swore she'd never try to move her mom in again. I told her it was too late. She had her chance and she blew it badly. Over the past 2 years, she's done nothing to grow or improve, just kept up appearances for others. Why should I stay in a toxic marriage like that? Eventually, she half admitted that if I had done the same thing to her, she would have left me. But she still kept begging, saying there was still a chance to fix things. I just walked away and shut myself in my office, but she didn't stop. She started trying to seduce me directly, walking around the house in lingerie. Even wore my favorite look, just a lace apron. She hadn't done that in months, not even when I asked. She tried touching me, played with my hair, got down on her knees. Did everything she could to tempt me. I didn't take the bait. I kept ignoring her. Then she hit me with the gaslighting. "What? I don't turn you on anymore." I answered, "You used to. Not anymore." And that was it. She stormed off and started drinking. Then she puked all over the kitchen. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to get pregnant out of spite or pulled some kind of stunt. Now, I lock my door at night and I've installed a hidden camera in the room. I just want to get out of this house. But I can't leave yet. I need to wait until my new place is ready. Wifey's crying spells got even worse once she realized nothing she did was working. She kept begging me not to go through with the move or the divorce, but I've already found a new apartment. It'll be ready sometime in early to mid-March. Now wifey's panicking. She needs to find a place of her own, fast, where she ends up. I honestly don't care anymore. All I care about is finally being free of this house. I also intentionally haven't told her where I'm moving. She's already tried 3 times. To get it out of me, no luck. As soon as the apartment's ready, I'll start moving stuff little by little. I'm taking the bed from the guest room. I paid for it, and it's a king size, not a California king like the one in the master bedroom. It'll be easier to move, and since I'm a big guy, a comfortable bed is essential. The rest of the furniture, she can keep it or leave it for the next tenant or sell it. I don't care anymore. My new apartment is a 1-bedroom. The previous tenant left it in terrible shape, so I'll need to do a bit of fixing up. But I chose it because the rent is much lower than this house, and it's way closer to work. Close enough that I can walk or bike there, and I plan to. I haven't ridden in years. All because wifey hates bikes. Just another thing she took away from me. So when I move out, one of the first things I'm buying is a bicycle. Edit. To clarify the bike situation, wifey hated bikes. Never wanted to ride with me, ever. Eventually, I lost interest too. Then one day, she just threw out my old bike without even asking me. I didn't get mad at the time because, yeah, the bike was falling apart, but the fact that I never bought a new one afterward says a lot. Now, I'm finally ready to get one again. Still deciding whether I want a mountain bike, a road bike, or a fixie. Update 6 to those who think they know me. Huge thanks to everyone who supported me through all of this. It's your advice and encouragement that gave me the strength to get through it. But to those of you calling me an idiot or throwing other insults for filing for divorce, to the ones saying I'm making a huge mistake, that my wife loves me and I should give her another chance, you can go ahead and shut your mouths. None of you lived with this woman. None of you lived with her mother before the wedding. They were completely different people, and you're judging me based solely on her sudden love bombing from the last update. Well, guess what? She's a damn good actress. She spent 3 years playing the perfect woman and then dropped the act the second she had me locked down with a ring. This whole performance of hers, all the remorse, it's just that, a performance. She doesn't love me. She loves the financial stability that came with being married to me. She loved having control over me and over my money. Renting this damn house became a matter of principle for her. She practically ordered me to buy all new furniture. Meanwhile, her mother was constantly testing me, trying to see how far I'd go for the family. She literally tried to force me to buy her a new phone like it was some kind of loyalty test, and when I refused, she threw a tantrum and then stole and pawned my key collection to buy the damn phone anyway. Pathetic revenge move that seriously backfired on her. And everyone calling me an idiot for calling the cops over some old keys. You can shut up too. This isn't just about the keys. That was the last straw. These keys aren't junk. Sure, they're not vintage jewelry, but some of them are worth hundreds of dollars each. And if you have several keys from a rare brand like Surge or Ren Hardware, the value skyrockets. It's a legitimate collection, but even if the value were 0, it's still my property, and it mattered to me. As for those annoyed that I keep calling her wifey, yeah, I get it. But I can't even bring myself to say my wife anymore. Legally, yes, she's still my wife. But in every other way, no. In real life, I never called her wifey. That's just for the internet. Maybe from now on I'll start calling her soon-to-be ex. And honestly, wifey is tame compared to what I've seen others call their exes or their mothers. Law. I single quotes LL admit I went overboard with it. But if you'd gone through what I have, you'd probably come up with an even harsher nickname. Someone asked if I had any failed relationships before this. Sorry to disappoint, but no. Wifey was my first for everything. We met on a blind date set up by mutual friends. She was my first girlfriend. The first person I ever held hands with. First kiss. First in bed. She told me she had previous partners before me. I didn't care. I fell in love. We moved in together after 2 years. I proposed a year later. We got married, but right after the honeymoon, it was like a mask came off. She became demanding, controlling, constantly prioritized her mother over me, and at home she acted like a spoiled teenager. I tried having honest, serious conversations with her, but all I got in return was leave me alone or not now. It became her way or no way. So I chose no way and went my own way. For those wondering about the case against my mother-in-law, yes, it's still open. And even if I wanted to drop the charges, I don't. She sold stolen property. So odds are we're headed to court in a few months. Since I had her arrested, she hasn't dared come near the house. I've installed even more hidden cameras now. One in the bedroom where I sleep, one in my home office where I spend most of my time, and I moved the living room cam as well. I haven't cooked a single meal at home since wifey came back from the motel. I mostly eat canned food or pre-made meals from the store. Salads, rotisserie chicken. Stuff like that. I use only disposable plastic utensils. I often eat at my best friend's place. It's kind of wild that no one's asked what my friends think of all this. My best friend and his wife are 100% on my side. They've seen how wifey and her mother treated me over the years. I've got a few other friends, men and women, who know the situation and they're supporting me too. Even some mutual friends who stopped talking to my wife once they saw her true colors, but none of them are directly involved in our mess. A few offered to help, but I didn't want to drag anyone else into this. Only my best friend is a little involved. He's the one who suggested I post my story here, and he's holding on to some of my stuff until I move. As for my wife, she says she has a couple people supporting her, but I haven't seen them. They haven't messaged me, and they've never come around. My mother-in-law has no friends at all. Even wifey admits that. She's literally her mother's only friend. Update 7. My deranged mother-in-law. I've decided I'm no longer going to call my soon-to-be ex-wife wifey, even that sounds wrong now. From now on, I'll just refer to her as my soon-to-be ex. A few months ago, I anonymously reported my mother-in-law's hoarding problem to the proper authorities. Someone in the comments had suggested contacting the fire department, so I did. I was angry and wanted revenge for her stealing my key collection and making my life hell. My mother-in-law had been hoarding garbage since my soon-to-be ex was a teenager. The house was filled to the ceiling with rotting trash and infested with rodents. I've seen rats there myself. I found the number online and called the city department. At first, nothing happened. Weeks went by, but eventually someone must have followed up because an inspection team showed up at her house, and what they found was even worse than I imagined. The house wasn't just dangerous for her, it was a hazard to the entire neighborhood. There were exposed wires, a leaking roof that hadn't been repaired in years, rot, black mold, rats, and tons of trash. From the outside, the place didn't look too bad. A lot of homes in the area had that same old rundown look, probably why no one had reported her sooner. My soon-to-be ex immediately figured out it was me. She came home furious and blew up on me, repeating everything her mother had told her about the inspection and how she was likely going to be forced out of the house now, but that was inevitable. If not me, someone else would have reported her eventually. She screamed that I was a horrible, deceitful person. I told her she was being a hypocrite and reminded her of all the reasons we were splitting up. I lost it and told her straight out. This all happened because she kept enabling her mother. She tried to downplay the theft of my unique skeleton key collection, which I spent 10 years building, acting like it was nothing. She ignored her own selfishness, her controlling behavior, and the way she's acted like a spoiled child since day one of our marriage. In a marriage, decisions are supposed to be mutual, but she made all of them unilaterally. So I made one too. For the first time in my life, I made a one-sided decision. I reported her mother's garbage pile, which needed to be removed anyway because it posed a threat to herself and others. I told her I was done swallowing everything and being the scapegoat while they wiped their feet on me. that her mother wasn't getting anything else from me. And maybe, she'd stop acting insane if she wasn't living in a house full of rotting trash, rat shit, and goddamn black mold. My soon-to-be ex just walked away, sniffling and muttering curses under her breath. Yeah, I know I went too far. I lowered myself to their level. I made that call in anger, but once it happened, I couldn't undo it. Her mother ended up demanding that her daughter pay for the cleanup and repairs, but she simply couldn't afford it. From the bits and pieces I overheard, her mother went ballistic, screaming, demanding money, telling her daughter to get it by any means necessary. Even told her to make me pay since I ratted her out. She even threatened to sue me. But my soon-to-be ex told her it was pointless. The house really was in terrible condition, rotting. Garbage, exposed electrical wires, leaks, mold. Living there was dangerous. When my soon-to-be ex tried to explain that she couldn't pay for the repairs, her mother snapped, attacked her, scratched her face, yanked her hair, and then it happened. My mother-in-law had a heart attack. The rage and stress must have finally caught up to her. My soon-to-be ex immediately called an ambulance and tried to find aspirin in the house, but by the time help arrived, it was too late. Her mother was dead. My soon-to-be ex came home with a police officer, no idea why, and had a meltdown, screaming throughout the house that it was my fault her mother died. That's when I found out her mother had a heart condition. Apparently, that's why she'd been receiving disability benefits. The officer had to step in and physically separate us. My soon-to-be ex collapsed on the couch, sobbing. Yeah, I hated her mother with all my heart, but I didn't want her dead. The guilt is still crushing. According to the officer and my soon-to-be ex, I learned the full story, but I couldn't bring myself to post anything here for weeks. I was torn apart by guilt. That night, after her mother's death, my soon-to-be ex finally calmed down a little and was able to talk to the officer properly. But even then, she kept bouncing back and forth, blaming herself and then me. I asked why no one ever told me her mother had a weak heart. She screamed, "It's none of your business." But it explained a lot. All those moments where her mother would theatrically clutch her chest and cry when she didn't get what she wanted. Now I get it. Later that evening, my soon-to-be ex locked herself in the bathroom and snapped, "I could hear things crashing, glass breaking." After a few minutes, she came out, furious but oddly calm, told me I had to clean up the mess, packed her things again, and left for the same motel, saying she'd only come back to collect her stuff. The guilt crushed me. I completely shut down. I took time off work. The stress triggered one of my worst migraine streaks ever. I spent 3 days on the couch, drugged up and barely functioning. But eventually, I got back on my feet. All my friends told me the same thing. "You're not responsible." I didn't. No. Yeah, the mother-in-law was insane, but what happened, happened, and now I have to live with it. A lot more happened since then. I'll talk about it in the next post. Music edit. I came back to find over 100 comments. Thank you all for the support. It's too much to respond to everyone individually, so I'll answer a few things here. Did I move into that apartment in March? Yes, I did. Everything described in this post happened before the move. I wish it didn't, but this is the reality I had to deal with. Am I seeing a therapist? Yes, for about a month now, and honestly, it's helping. Some commenters turned against me, but I don't blame them. Yes, my mother-in-law had heart problems I didn't know about, and yes, I started the chain of events by calling the fire department. I understand that hoarding is a serious mental illness. I acted out of anger. I'm not made of stone. I do feel guilt, but on the other hand, she was a narcissist who crushed not just me, but everyone around her, even her own daughter. Yes, losing your home is terrifying, but if you turn your home into a pile of rot, disease, and filth, that's on you. She could only live in one room because the rest were uninhabitable. And you know what? About a week ago, I passed by her lot. The house is gone, just an empty patch of land now. Looks like the city condemned it and tore it down. Update: my wife tried to ruin me to those who kept saying I shouldn't get a divorce, that my wife still loved me and all that. You couldn't have been further from the truth. I couldn't tell if some of you were just naive or deliberately trolling me. Some even brought religion into it, saying divorce is a sin. I don't care about anyone's religious views on my divorce. You're not me. You don't live my life. It's like a millionaire saying, I know what it's like to struggle with gas prices while sitting in a $1 million car. No one can judge whether my soon-to-be ex-wife loved me or not. You didn't live with her. You didn't live with her mother. You didn't go through what I did, so your opinion doesn't count. Sorry for the long post, but there's a lot to cover. Everything I'm about to describe happened months ago. I just haven't posted because I was completely mentally drained. If it seems like things are moving too fast, it's only because I'm now recounting events that already happened. Just tying up loose ends. My soon-to-be ex-wife admitted to my face that she only married me for financial stability. So yeah, I was 100% right. She spent years training me just to pull me into marriage and use me like a wallet. And yes, she really did have a plan to get pregnant. After I filed for divorce, she was planning to trap me, but once her mother died, she stopped pretending she wanted to save our marriage. In the last post, I shared that I reported my MILS hoarding to the fire department, which led to her house being deemed unlivable. She demanded that my wife pay for repairs, but she couldn't afford it. The mill went nuts, attacked her daughter, and died of a heart attack. I only learned after her death that she had a congenital heart condition. I'd been told her disability was psychological. Losing her home, the place she lived in for decades, triggered the heart attack, especially after she physically attacked her own daughter. Yes, I still carry guilt. But what's done is done. The house was demolished. I don't know if my wife still owns the lot or already sold it. I can't imagine she inherited anything valuable. The place was in such a disgusting state. I once saw a rat running across the top of a pile of garbage. For those who speculated that she was trying to get pregnant with emotional manipulation, you were spot on. A few days after she moved into a motel following her mother's death, I went into the bathroom she had trashed and found a bottle labeled fertility support. The seal was broken. I Googled it. Turns out it's just an over-the-counter women's fertility vitamin. Anyone can buy it. When she came by to pick up more of her stuff, I confronted her. She admitted she had hoped to get pregnant so I wouldn't leave, but claimed that was before her mother died. After that, she supposedly didn't want anything to do with me. I told her I'd felt the same for a long time. She just scoffed. I'll never know if she tried to spike my food or beer. I searched the house top to bottom and found nothing suspicious. Maybe she just tried to get me drunk. I'm just incredibly relieved we never had a child together. I wasn't invited to the funeral. I didn't push it, but then she posted online saying she was mad almost no one from the family came, not even her father, and even lied that I was invited but refused to show. I have screenshots where she clearly told me not to come. After her mom died, she kept living at the motel, slowly moving her things, either to storage or a friend's place. I didn't pry. Friends told me she eventually rented a studio apartment, but hated it. After that house, everything felt small. She was even spotted at the local laundromat. Our old landlord let us leave some furniture behind, and the new tenants were fine with it. Many of you guessed she'd trash the place, but aside from the bathroom tantrum, she didn't. She refused to split the cost of cleaning just to spite me, but I didn't argue. I hired a cleaning service myself. They did a perfect job, and I got my half of the security deposit back. Later, I bought a used Kent Ridgeland bike and started riding again. It's mostly original except for the seat. These days I ride once or twice a week, no more. The excitement isn't the same, but I enjoy cruising the city. I thought about biking to work, but too many people warned me off, especially after a friend got hit by a car. Now I ride just for fun. Sometimes my best friend joins me. He's got a red Mongoose MTB. I fixed his brakes and tires, and now We ride together. His bike is heavier but has gears. Mine's a fast single speed. We're evenly matched now. After the funeral, my wife completely lost it. She started slandering me on social media, full-on lies, claiming I was abusive emotionally, physically, and financially. When in fact, she was the abuser. She kept saying my key collection was worthless. By that point, most of our mutual friends knew the truth. They commented on her posts, called her out, and eventually she deleted everything. But even after that, I got DMs from her cronies. The most common accusation: you killed a sick old woman over some keys. I explained everything. I shared screenshots, especially the one where she told me not to attend the funeral. I told them I was sorry for her death, but I couldn't have predicted a heart attack. And the house was a biohazard. Some apologized, most just shut up. A few kept calling me a liar, so I blocked them. I contacted my wife and warned her, if she kept spreading lies, I'd sue her for defamation in addition to the divorce. Defamation, in case you're wondering, is when someone spreads damaging falsehoods about you that could have really hurt her career. I'd already saved all the posts and screenshots. She tried to say I was blackmailing her, but she stopped posting anyway. Later, she claimed she just snapped from grief, but no one bought it. In the end, she deleted all her social media. Then she called me, blamed me for everything, mockingly said she was glad we were divorcing, told me I never satisfied her in bed because I was too vanilla, said she regretted not going back to her ex. That stung a little. To be clear, she never cheated on me, even though many suspected it. She just spent way too much time with her mother. I even spoke to her ex. Her old friends are still in contact with him and gave me his number. He said he broke up with her because she and her mother started treating him the same way they later treated me. Turns out, I wasn't her first victim. Another guy, her high school boyfriend, dumped her for the same reasons. I'm afraid this story isn't over yet. I'll just say, the divorce is in progress and it's not going in her favor. Update 9. My wife reached out to my mother after the social media fiasco. My soon-to-be ex-wife made one last desperate attempt to get back at me. She tracked down my mother, someone I've been estranged from for years. Most likely, she found her through Facebook, and yes, my ex knew perfectly well why I don't talk to my mother. I've told her countless times that my mom is a narcissist and what she's done in the past. But she didn't care. She went to her anyway. Maybe she was looking for a new mommy, or maybe she just wanted to hurt me, or both. Either way, we all know how petty she is. My mom lived not far from us. I never really moved out of my old neighborhood. My ex fed her a bunch of crap, exaggerated some things, and outright lied about others. Soon after, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my mother. Her first words were, "How could you?" She didn't even let me speak. Just started screaming, "I don't want to hear your excuses." Then came an angry monologue, all based on the lies my ex had told her. I hung up halfway through her rant and blocked the number. At that moment I thought, great, now the two most toxic women in my life have teamed up. Somehow my ex also found out my new address. I don't know how, but at this point, it doesn't matter. What matters is that she showed up with my damn mother. My mom looked exactly the same as I remembered her, now with gray hair, still dressed like someone denying her age. Still judgmental and narcissistic, and the moment she opened her mouth and started yelling, I snapped, I lost it and unleashed everything on both of them. I wasn't even surprised that my crazy mother immediately took the liar's side without hearing me out. Words just poured out of me, everything they'd done. For the first time in my life, my mother was genuinely scared of me. She didn't even try to defend herself. I don't know how long I was yelling. It felt endless. I was almost disassociated, my mouth moving on autopilot. I told my mom everything, how my ex and her mom manipulated me into a fake marriage, how they stole my collection, how disgusting the hoarder house was, how my ex admitted to trying to trap me with a pregnancy, and how she dragged my own mother to my place to make things even worse. I looked at my ex and said, if your brilliant plan was to use my mother to control me, then you're even dumber than I thought. Eventually, the cops showed up. One of the neighbors had called them. I had a security camera pointed at the front door, so I had proof I never laid a finger on either of them. At first, the police assumed I was the problem. A grown man yelling at two supposedly terrified women doesn't look great, but they heard me out and saw the footage. My mom really did look scared. She didn't want to speak to the cops, and my ex knew better than to lie to them. So they had to admit why they came, said they just wanted to talk. Yeah, right. Who knows what would have happened if the police and my rage hadn't stopped them. No one was arrested, but I made it crystal clear that I didn't want to see either of them ever again. Right after that, I went down to the station and filed a report to have everything on record, just in case they started stalking me again. One of the officers tried to talk me out of it, said it was extreme since they had only knocked on my door. He even seemed offended that I was filing a complaint against my own mother and ex. I told him he didn't know these people. They're narcissists. They don't stop. After the report, I called my best friend and told him everything. He asked if I wanted to go for a bike ride to clear my head. I said yes. We rode until our legs went numb. The next day, I texted my mother at the number she called me from. I explained some things in detail. I even sent screenshots with proof. I did it for two reasons. First, to avoid hearing her voice. Second, so I could keep the conversation documented and share it with my divorce attorney. My mom said my ex had told her a completely different story, in which I was abusive in every possible way. I told her she was free to stay in contact with my ex if she wanted, but I wanted nothing to do with either of them. I warned her, if they showed up at my apartment again, I'd call the cops. She didn't respond for a few days. I also messaged a few other relatives, explained everything, and asked them to spread the word in case my ex tried to complain to them. Looks like she had the sense not to do that. I didn't hear anything from any of them. Eventually, my mom and my ex had a big falling out, and my mom kicked her out. Later, my mother messaged me to say she didn't want to risk getting involved in another conflict by siding with my ex. She added a short, half-assed apology. I replied that I still didn't want a relationship with her because she still justified the way she raised me. She said she understood and passive-aggressively wished me a good life. I blocked her again after that. As of that moment, and still now, my ex hasn't hired a divorce attorney. I think she knows that with all the evidence my lawyer has, she doesn't stand a chance. Every dumb thing she's done has just added to our case. She's barely putting up a fight. Then again, there's not much to fight over. We only had a joint bank account and a rented house. I'm no longer on the account, and we both moved out. She can't take out credit in my name. I have cameras. I'm not putting up with an ounce more of her crap. I think she's scared of me now. Shortly before I started posting again, she even moved to another state. Apparently, she got a job transfer and notified my lawyer, but she'll be back when the court date comes. So unless something else insane happens, I won't need to write another update until the divorce is final. Update 10. I got divorced. I'm officially single now. The divorce was finalized a couple of weeks ago. My ex tried to stall the process and pulled some crap near the end, but it all blew up in her face. Honestly, I think she's completely broken. Now, besides the fact that her mom, when alive, was both a financial and emotional burden to her, my ex desperately relied on her love and approval. Probably because her father walked out. Blind worship of a narcissist is exactly what narcissists want. So my ex made a ton of mistakes. After her mom's death, she tried to make my life hell again, but it all backfired. Here's what happened. Some flying monkey of hers called me in mid-August. Sunday, 7 a.m. I answered on autopilot. This lady was something else, a total diva, if you can call her that. She acted exactly like my mother did when my ex went crying to her. The woman asked if it was me. I said yes. She replied with a snide, and immediately started blaming me for everything, then said, "You need Jesus." I was too sleepy to react. I just hung up and blocked the number. Great way to ruin a Sunday. Then she started messaging me on social media. That's where she screwed up. Her profile had her name and picture. I took screenshots and told her if she didn't leave me alone, I'd sue her for harassment. She shut up instantly and blocked me. After that, I messaged my ex and told her I didn't care who she was friends with now, but if she kept lying about me or trying to smear my name, I'd take legal action. I already had all the proof I needed. Surprisingly, she admitted it was her fault and promised not to do it again, and that was the end of it. A few months ago, one of the commenters here said something that really stuck with me, that the police showed up way too quickly that day when I lost it on my mom and ex. He wondered if they had called the cops themselves ahead of time, trying to frame me as some aggressive psycho. Luckily, I had security footage showing they provoked me and I never touched them just to be safe. I asked my lawyer to look into it. Fortunately, it really was a neighbor who called the cops. We still don't know which one, though. If it had been my ex or mother, we could have nailed them for a false report, but in the end, it didn't matter. We already had more than enough evidence for the divorce case. I'm still in therapy, given everything I went through. With my mom, ex, and ex-mill, my therapist says I'm holding up pretty well, but I have major trust issues now. Especially with new women I meet. I'm fine with women I've known a long time or who are close friends. But if I meet someone new and feel even a hint of attraction, I go into avoidance mode. My therapist says it's totally valid that I've decided never to get married again. It's not for everyone, and right now, every new woman feels like a potential threat. I'm working on it. My ex eventually gave up. She quit her job and moved to another state. I only saw her one last time during the final court hearing. She never hired a lawyer. Maybe she knew she didn't stand a chance, or maybe she just couldn't afford one. Turns out she was in bad financial shape. Most of her money went to her mother. During the hearing, some debts came up that I didn't even know about. One she racked up before we got married. I don't know all the details, only that she had them and that she admitted she had counted on me to help pay them off, or rather, she wanted to dump them on me once I was fully under her thumb, but she and mommy pushed my deepest triggers, and I pushed back. If you've read my earlier posts, you already know the whole messy, ugly story. Either way, her behavior and confessions confirmed that she only married me for financial stability. At the hearing, she mostly avoided insulting me, didn't look me in the eye much. At first, she tried playing the scared victim again and blamed me for her mother's death. I didn't deny that I reported the hoarder house, but I had no way of predicting that her mom would have a heart attack. That place was uninhabitable and dangerous to her and to the neighbors. The judge was horrified by the condition of the house. My ex couldn't even deny it. The judge saw right through her manipulation attempts, especially after reviewing the mountain of evidence I had all about her and her mom. When backed into a corner, she stopped crying, straightened up, and just looked defeated. Then she tried one last ridiculous thing. She brought up my bike. I think she was just desperate to hit a nerve. She told the judge she hated bikes and that, as her husband, I should have respected that. I shouldn't have even owned one, especially not an old rusty one. She called my bike a pile of junk that she tossed out because it annoyed her. Then she turned to me and said I should have gotten enough exercise from the gym. The judge looked at her like she was nuts and said the bike had nothing to do with anything. Moved on to the next topic. After court, in the hallway, she ran up to me and threw in one last jab. Hope you and your bike are happy now that you chose it over a beauty like me. I told her I could say a lot of things in return, but I wouldn't. I told her to stop acting like a child. It was over and to leave me alone so we could both move on. She stormed out. That was the last time I saw her in person. We had no shared assets. The house was rented. The cars were in our individual names, no kids. Our incomes are about the same, but I had the advantage: recordings, footage, bank records, social media screenshots, texts, the whole thing with my mother, all of it. Once she saw the size of the evidence folder, she didn't even try to deny anything, just babbled nonsense and finally agreed to a no alimony, mutual consent divorce. We each went our separate ways. Someone in the comments here once suggested I file a motion to return her maiden name. I did. She agreed without question. A week ago, she called me one last time. She said she still hated me with all her heart, but had finally realized what her toxic mother had done to her. I don't know how true that is. Doesn't matter anymore, she said. She's made new friends, lives in another state, and for the first time in her life is taking care of herself. I wished her luck. That was it. We ended things on neutral terms. Not friendly, but not hostile either. Now I'm free. And I can only hope that if I ever do meet someone new, she won't be anything like my ex. Update 11, entitled Ruma Tessie hesitated for a long time about whether to share this last story after everything with my ex-wife and mother-in-law. But I've mentioned it so many times that I guess it's time to tell it. I know it might seem like I always attract horrible people. Maybe I did somehow. My horrible mom, my horrible ex, horrible MIL who died before she officially became my ex-mil, that annoying co-worker who gave my number to my mom, and the cherry on top, 3 idiot roommates I lived with in college. But aside from all that, I haven't really had much evil in my life. I have great friends, a decent job, I'm physically active. There were just periods where I seemed to be a narcissist magnet. Hopefully, that's behind me. So back in college, I lived with 3 holes for half a year. It was a rundown rental apartment with crusty 80s decor. I was juggling school and a part-time job, barely had enough money. Funny thing is, I was the only one among us who actually knew how to cook and clean up after myself. I wasn't into coupons or anything. We only had decent stores nearby, a regular supermarket and a small discount store. I mostly shopped at the latter. I also practically lived in the local thrift store. Meanwhile, my roommates lived on fast food and frozen crap. So you can probably guess what happened whenever I cooked anything. All the leftovers would magically disappear. They devoured everything. We also argued constantly about the mess, but eventually settled that part. 2 of them had been friends since before college, and the third just clicked into their little trio. One day, I went shopping and got ground beef, a jar of sauce, a loaf of garlic bread, pasta, and some canned green beans. I made a beautiful dinner, but when I asked them to chip in, like we'd agreed, they just laughed and said no. Brushed it off as a joke. I told them I wasn't okay with that. They said they were sick of me showing off with my cooking and not sharing. So I gave them the middle finger and swore never to cook for them again. And I stuck to it. Later, they tried to talk me into cooking again, even offered to pay, but still wouldn't cough up for that dinner. I didn't trust them, whether they paid or not. I was done being their nanny. I didn't know their family backgrounds, but it was clear they weren't used to being told no. Then one day, I came home from work and found all my food gone, fridge and cupboards empty. The place was deserted. I was furious, too angry to confront them right away, so I went to cool down. Decided to play some video games, but my consoles were missing too. I snapped. I went to a neighbor in the building, the guy who once sold me my GameCube, and asked what I should do. He had a devilish idea. He said he could record me confronting them, but only if I paid him $20. I didn't have a better option, so I agreed. When my roommates finally got back, they were smug, until they realized their own consoles and laptops were missing too. They flipped, started threatening to beat the crap out of me. But I stood my ground and said, "Give me back my stuff or I'll never tell you where your stuff is." Turned out they had gathered all my food into bags and tossed it in the dumpster a few hours earlier. My consoles and TV. They hid them somewhere in the building before going to a party. I asked why they did it. They said they'd been drinking all day because it was the weekend. Just a dumb drunk prank, then they turned it around and blamed me. For overreacting, I laughed in their faces and told them they were insane hypocrites pulling all this and still claiming I was the one who went too far. One of them raised a fist like he was about to hit me. That's when I pointed to the window. They all looked, and there was my neighbor filming from outside. He gave me a big thumbs up and climbed down the fire escape before they could do anything. I told them he just recorded your confession, bullying, theft, underage drinking. If you don't make this right, I'm taking it to the dean. And trust me, it won't look good on your records. Everyone knew that just last year, 2 girls got expelled for bullying their roommate. And underage drinking, another major violation. They looked like they'd been doused in white paint. Pale as hell. I said I wanted my stuff back in compensation for the food. Balls in their court, they ran out like their lives depended on it. Came back with my consoles and game discs in a trash bag. They even pulled the food out of the dumpster, thinking I'd accept it. I refused. That stuff had been in the trash for hours. I agreed to take only money. Plus, they dropped my TV and broken it, so I wanted that replaced too. They stalled, squirmed, and finally asked, "What do you want?" I said, "A new TV and $60 from each of you." They asked, "Why 60? I explained, $50 for the food, $5 for the spaghetti dinner they never paid for, and the rest to pay the guy who stood outside in the cold filming them for 2 hours. They gritted their teeth, pulled out their wallets, and handed over the cash. They used to brag about how their parents paid for everything, so they had the money. Once I had the cash, I told them where their stuff was, in their own suitcases, sitting in the closet. They never thought to look their dot man, were they? Pissed when they realized their stuff had been under their noses the whole time. One of them had a small flat-screen TV and just gave it to me to replace mine. We called it even. After that, they barely spoke to me, but pretty soon they started annoying each other. I guess I broke their little bro bubble. They stopped bringing booze into the apartment. Probably afraid I'd report them. They tried messing with the guy who filmed them, but he said if they touched him again, he'd take the tape to the dean. So they shut up. When it came time to renew the lease, 2 of them moved out. By then, they hated the third guy, and me. We saw each other a few times on campus. They avoided me like the plague. The one who stayed behind actually started changing for the better. When new roommates moved in, he warned them not to mess with me. One of the new guys turned out to be amazing. He liked to cook simple home meals like I did, loved Nintendo and bikes. He became my best friend and still is to this day. We still play Mario Kart whenever we can. After my divorce, he became one of my biggest supports. And for those wondering where I hid their stuff, I just packed it all into their own suitcases in the closet. They never thought to check. Update 12. My ex is mad I bought a condo a couple of months ago. I bought a 1-bedroom condo at a great price. It was being sold by an elderly couple moving to Arizona, and their son happens to work with me. The place is a little outdated, but overall in good condition, and it has a surprisingly large closet where I can keep my bike. It's a bit farther from work than my previous rental, and I had to pay a penalty for breaking the lease early, but the deal was just too good to pass up. The neighborhood is safer too, so sometimes I bike to work, though I'm always a little paranoid about getting hit by a car. Still, the rides have helped me get back in shape. I expected that once I bought the place, my narcissistic mom would reach out. She always shows up when something good happens in my life. But this time, my ex got there first. Apparently, she's been keeping tabs on my social media. Not surprising. About 3 weeks after moving in, I was playing video games one night when my phone rang. I picked up without thinking, and when I realized it was her, I immediately turned on my call recorder app and told her I was recording. She didn't care at all. She was clearly drunk. I've dealt with her benders before. The drunker she was, the more childish she acted. One time, she got so hammered that she started yelling at some random woman in a bar about who had bigger boobs or something, and when I brought her home, she tried to go into the neighbor's house. I had to drag her back inside, where she immediately threw up on me. I had to wash both of us off before putting her to bed. After that, I stayed up for an hour just to make sure she didn't wander off, which had happened before. One time she woke up half naked on the kitchen floor, another time out in the yard in the rain, the worst time. I won't even describe it, let's just say it involved her car and something deeply embarrassing. I had to bring her a blanket and wrap her up, praying none of the neighbors saw her, but all that was nothing compared to the crap I dealt with during our marriage. So back to the call, I told her we were done and asked what she wanted. That's when she launched into a drunken rant about how I had bought a condo. She rambled on about how her life sucks, she's drowning in debt, now paying everything alone, got a formal warning at work, had to sell her BMW and now drives some old junker. She's losing friends, her last boyfriend dumped her, and her apartment is tiny with terrible neighbors. And here I am with an awesome place, and apparently she could kill someone out of jealousy. I told her that none of that had anything to do with me. She switched to insults, screaming that I abandoned her after I gave her mom a heart attack. I reminded her that she literally admitted during the divorce that she married me for money, and I wasn't going to stay in a marriage where I was being used as an ATM. I added that because of her entitled behavior, she can't hold on to a man or keep friends. That set her off completely, but by that point I could barely understand her slurring. So I hung up. Then she started flooding my phone with messages. I turned it off for the night, let her rage. When I turned it back on in the morning, there was a wall of texts. I replied and told her if she didn't leave me alone, I'd file a restraining order. She sent me a middle finger emoji. Then she called again, still drunk. I firmly told her I was recording the call and didn't want to talk. She screamed, "Shut up. I'm not done talking," so I hung up before she finished. She called back immediately. I picked up, gave her 10 seconds to speak, then hung up again. More messages followed. She admitted she was insanely jealous that I bought a place, said that she was supposed to be the one thriving while I struggled. I replied that she ruined her own life, and it's no surprise people are turning away from her. She's toxic to the core. She said she's not toxic, just misunderstood. So I spammed her with laughing emojis and finally let it all out. I reminded her how she tricked me into marrying her, used me, lied to me, controlled me financially, humiliated me, and let her mom do the same. She didn't give a damn about my vintage key collection when her witch of a mother stole it, even though she knew it was important to me. She only wanted me for financial security. That's toxic as hell. There was no point trying to save that marriage. It was doomed, especially after she blamed me for her mother's death. I didn't kill that old hag. Her fast food addiction and a trash-packed, rat-infested, black mold-ridden house did that. The only thing I did was report that the house was a danger to her and everyone around. She replied with a crying emoji, then an angry face, then the middle finger and a poop emoji. I sarcastically replied that that was very mature and sent an eye roll emoji. I can only imagine how she must have been losing it at that point, because her next message was just a jumble of nonsense letters. Then she wrote that I'm an asshole who thinks he's better than her. I said I didn't care whether I was better than her or not. This isn't a competition. She replied with, "Fuck you" in all caps and like 10 exclamation points. I told her she was just projecting her self-hatred onto me because she knows she ruined everything. And if she hates her car so much, she should get an e-bike like her mommy. She started calling again. I declined. She called again. Declined again. I texted her that I was blocking her number, and if she tried to contact me again, I'd go to a lawyer. The last thing she sent before I blocked her was, "I hope you fall off your bike and break your neck." She hasn't contacted me since. No surprise, she blames me for everything. Admitting she's a terrible person would be too much. Not that I'm an angel. Anyone reading my posts knows that, but I played the role of the obedient husband for far too long. I've got nothing left to say to her.